Okay, so you are the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee.
Yes.
You do the budgeting for the state Senate. So right now there's a thing called the FRA that most folks didn't ever talk about.
Yeah.
When you were here in your first stint as a House member, you voted for.
Yep.
Wasn't a big deal. What is the FRA? What does it do for folks? What does it do for my buddy Ben Appleknap up in Worth County?
Well, what the FRA is called the Federal Reimbursement Allowance, and what it does is basically fund our Medicaid program in the state of Missouri by a provider tax on hospitals, ambulances, nursing homes, and pharmacy services. And it brings in about $1.5 billion that are matched by the federal government, about $4 billion in total with all of that, and that's how we largely fund our Medicaid program in the state of Missouri.
So right now, if you have a proud Putnam County midget right up in Unionville, and they break their leg, if you don't pass this, is there going to be a hospital for that person to go to?
Well, we sure hope so.
But if you don't pass this,
no, the governor's announced a number of withholds that he plans on doing to try to fill that gap, which then impacts many other aspects of the budgeting process and many other entities that we budget for.
You know, sometimes you hear folks say, "Oh, this is the most important election of life. This is the most important bill," and usually it's not, just by definition. This might be the most important thing you do.
This is a very important piece of legislation that we really need to get done, and that's why we are in a special session, because we weren't able to get it accomplished during the regular session.
So you've handled these bills. You moved one out of committee. Now, just so everybody knows, we're taping this Friday. To get it in the can. It's the actual bill will be perfected today, sometime maybe tonight. You hope today, but maybe this evening, and maybe third read and passed tomorrow and sent to the House.
We certainly hope so. You bet. Yeah.
So there's language in it.
Dedicated to getting it done.
Sure. It looks to me like everybody in this building says we're getting this done. Not quite sure how you're going to get there. Right now, your bill that came out of committee has some language that deals with abortion. Can you give folks just the nutshell version of what you felt like needed to be in this bill?
Well, we have a provision that Senator Whelan offered during the regular session that deals with the use of abortifacients and trying to ban the state of Missouri from paying for abortifacients, drugs that are used to create abortions. So we've worked that language a little bit since Senator Whelan offered it in the regular session, but that's part of the bill. And then there's another provision that deals with the Uninsured Women's Health Initiative that is solely funded by the state government, by the state of Missouri. And we have a provision on that would allow, that would ban that from being utilized by abortion providers.
So I've heard folks explain, I heard you explain this on the Senate floor. There was a court ruling where you kind of eliminated some of the funding for things like Planned Parenthood in the budget. The court said you can't do that anymore.
Right.
So you got to find a different way to do that. And it's funny to me, I watch your campaigns. I watch folks that run for office. They run for office. Almost every Republican runs on being staunchly pro-life.
Sure.
You pass out those little cards, right? I mean, I don't recall you having the most competitive elections, but when you did go around and speak, you said you're pro-life.
Well, I am.
Why would it surprise anybody that a group of folks run, all of them saying they're pro-life?
Right.
The citizens of Missouri elect a supermajority of those folks, then they're coming pro-life. It would be surprising if you weren't.
Right. Yeah.
But this is a unique situation. Now, I watched you sit through a committee hearing that I don't think there's anybody that would have traded places with you yesterday for about 2.5 hours. But there are folks that are on the pro-choice side that say there's a lot of actual provision in this that talk about birth control. Now, I would be surprised if anybody really was anti-birth control in the Republican caucus.
Right.
I don't pick that up, do you?
No, I don't either. And that's not what Senator Whelan's language says. It is specifically designed for abortifacients, drugs that cause, and for the purpose of causing abortions.
So when you get home and you go up to Tarkio and are visiting at Blakehurst,
you bet,
and someone says, I read where there was some birth control stuff, what would you tell him or a lady that stopped you there in Tarkio and said, is this true? What would you tell them you did here that made folks even concerned about abortion?
Yeah, and I would say that it does not deal with birth control. It does just deal with abortifacients and drugs that are used for that purpose. I think that's a mischaracterization of Senator Whelan's amendment.
Let's say somebody does come next session and they do want to limit access to birth control. I asked Senator Moon when I interviewed him once, isn't there a good fiscal policy for this state to take folks that if you're on Medicaid, you're not rich by definition.
Right.
giving those folks birth control probably is actually a good fiscal policy for the state. I mean, if a person isn't planning on having a kid and they probably can't afford one, having access to birth control is probably something good for everybody in that situation. Seems to me.
Certainly, a lot of folks would agree with that statement, and as do I.
This special session, folks will be watching this on Sunday.
Yeah.
When they watch this, will their hospitals be safe? Will you pass this FRA?
I'm convinced we will get an FRA done.
Maybe a winding path, but you'll get one done?
Yes, I'm convinced we will get it done.
Let me ask you this next question. If you did do an FRA without any of this other language, and session came back around, I have very seldom seen a serious pro-life initiative that wasn't adopted by the Missouri General Assembly. If they were to take this legislation and move it in a special session, it feels like if it's any kind of reasonable pro-life, it passes, right?
We'll see. I mean, yeah, you bet. And it's an effort. You know, the key on this is some folks are worried that it may violate, you know, the federal standards or this federal Social Security code. There's some of the concerns, and then we don't gain anything.
Let me ask you a follow-up here, though.
Yeah.
Let's say you do something, the federal government says you can't do it.
Right.
My assumption is you, Cody Smith, Mike Parson get in a room, and you're right back here passing a clean FRA.
Well, we need to pass the FRA, and the fact in the past years they've never been conjoined.
I think
They've always been. We've always done a clean FRA, and this year it was decided by some senators that they would put the two together.
I think what folks maybe want to know is you may try some things, you may do some different stuff, but at the end of the day, you, Governor Parson, you're never going to let the FRA go away and hospitals close, right? You're going to protect that.
We need to do that. You bet.